In this video segment, we're going to take a look at the drafting process in preparing for the NKBA certification exams. And specifically, we're going to take a look at, from our website, chiefarchitect.com/NKBA, using the profile plan and layout plan for creating our practice exams. When you go to that web page, you'll be able to find a zip file with several files in it. There's a sample file in the previous video segment we were looking at. And then specifically we're looking at the template for the layout file and the template for the exam file. One more thing about file management before we begin. When you download those files, take the template for the layout and the template for the plan file, create a new folder, whatever you want to call it, and make sure you put it in there and call it something like My Practice Exam, or when you actually are beginning the exam process, set up a folder so that you can easily manage those files and you don't overwrite them. And you can also then put your PDF in there that when you print your PDF at the end of the result. So make sure you do a good job of maintaining those files in a separate folder. I'm going to go ahead and open up this example plan. I'm going to go through and actually design a kitchen in this particular how-to video. The bath works very similar, although a very different room, but the same process can be used. You can see that the kitchen has some design criteria for accessibility into it, and there's a few design challenges with a different wall thickness you can see off to the right hand side of your screen here, and also it was a as-built condition, so we have some considerations for our construction drawings as well. I'm going to close this and go back into that template plan and we'll begin the work. Now I've opened up the template plan file and the template layout file, and I did a file save as to call it My Practice Exam in the appropriate folder for the layout and for the floor plan. You'll notice when you open up the profile plan file, I have a legend information in there already, and you can borrow from that. And also, again, you'll find those annotation sets: construction, floor plan, mechanical, and then the general, which is somewhat of a working area under your default layer set. In the layout file, I've got 4 pages set up, one for your construction plan, mechanical plan, floor plan, and then for your wall elevation. If you go to page 0, this is where you can change your title blocks. So you can put your designer information. If you want to put your own logo in there, you can simply grab that logo and remove it. And you may want to change your copyright information to put your copyright on there. And any other information that you want to put on the all sheets will show up on page 0. We'll go through that a little bit more as we begin the layout process. Now, a couple disclaimers about the profile plan you're using. They're not really recommended for actual designs, more for the exam itself. The door and window casing defaults, we remove the reveal and overlap and also the sill information. It just makes it easier to dimension to, a little more straightforward when the two casings for the exterior and interior align. Our ceiling height, we rounded it to 108 inches. Typically, if you have a standard stud and your floor and your ceiling structures, it moves up to 109 1/8. And then our annotation sets and layer sets, I removed all the extra annotation sets and layer sets. Try to make this as streamlined as possible. Also, a few other things about wall defaults and wall styles. We removed a lot of the extra walls in the plan to just make it easy for you. And so just a couple of disclaimers about that. There are many approaches you can use in taking the exam. You can create the 4 required drawings simultaneously, and as you make changes in identifying the different scenarios and requirements, you're going to undoubtedly need to jump back and forth between the construction, the floor plan, the mechanical plan. So here's one approach to consider. I would think beginning with the construction plan and drawing the known facts. Typically you're going to get a scenario, there's going to be details about the rooms, the walls, the openings, and very, very specific requirements the client may have. So those facts that you know, I would draw them and begin this as your basis for your construction plan. So let's go through and do that. I've got a fictitious scenario. It was one of the older sample scenarios from the NKBA for a kitchen. And I'm just going to kind of create the shape of the room and the walls, and let's go through and take a look at how that works. Now let's just take a quick look at our annotation set and our layer set. In the PDF table that I have, we have our annotation set as the NKBA General and the default layer set. This is our working area. I'm going to use that as my design space. So here is my NKBA General set. Here's my layer set of default. Now what I want to draw is something like this on the screen that you see. It's a rectangular room, and the only specialty issue about this is we have a little nook in the room where this is a 6-inch wall and this is a 4-inch wall. Let's use our wall tool and create a rectangular room. Select the wall tool here, and I'm actually just going to use the interior wall tool, and I'm going to shape out just a rectangular shaped room. Once I'm finished with that, I'm going to select inside of the room, and there's a tool down here to make it pretty quick called the Automatic NKBA Dimension Tool. I'm going to select that, and that's going to place our exterior dimensions for the interior walls. So now let's just kind of go through and resize this. While I can click on this wall and drag it, it's more precise if I know the exact dimension, which is 249.5. I'll set that dimension, and then on this wall down here, I'll go ahead and set that. Notice my dimension didn't update, but that's okay because I'm going to update that. I'm going to make that 151, and then we'll just simply click in the room and refresh those dimensions. So now that I have the correct dimensions in here, I need to look at the wall type. Now if I select this bottom wall and double click on it, my wall type is set at 4.5 inches. If I slide this over, my wall legend, and I'll zoom in on this when you can see it, I have a 4-inch wall, and then on the upper section of the wall I have a 6-inch wall. So eventually I'm going to break this wall and make it a 6-inch wall partway through. But know that I've used a 4-inch wall, which is what the NKBA calls it or refers to it. Its actual thickness is 4.5, which is 1/2 inch of sheetrock or some finish layer on each side, followed by a 2x4, which is 3.5 inches. So with this 4-inch wall, and rather than breaking this wall up here and creating that jog that we saw in there, I first want to go through and create it, because as soon as I do that, some of my automatic dimensions won't work as well, and I want to help you save time. And so as long as we can use the automatic dimensions, we're going to do a lot of manual dimensioning through here, but that just makes things a lot faster. Now in the design, if I pull it over here in the construction plan and the completed construction plan, there's actually a window that's placed in here, and you can see that it's been moved, which is what the opening closed indication here is. And I'll place that because in the scenario that I have, it's going to tell me what those dimensions are. So I'll place that window, and then this is going to be a new window added. That's why there's a center line here, and then there may be an existing door here and an existing door, and then you notice a couple of the walls with break lines on those. Let's go through and take a look at the process of adding those, and then I'll come back in and we'll remove these walls out. There are walls that are in the design, and you can see by using the dashed line that that's a demo wall, and you can see that over here in the legend. Now I adjusted my dimension. I'm at 153 by 249.5. That's going to the interior surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with the window tool. And when you place your window, let's go ahead and place it on this side of the house. When you begin placing your windows going forward, the requirements may tell you to use double hung, double casement, single casement. You can open up that information about that window. You can make the change to the style of that in case you need to show it in an elevation view, and make the change to it, and then set that as your default. Once you set it as your default, you may have particular casing requirements. You can come in here and put in that casing information. Again, we've matched the interior casing and the exterior casing just to make it super easy. But your requirement may say for your interior casing they want a 4-inch casing. So then you can put that information right in here. Once you've made the changes to that window, you can select the window, come down here and click Set as Default. All future windows, if you have very many of them, will have those same properties. Same thing for your doors, same thing for your cabinets. I'll spend a little bit more time about the cabinets when we get to that. So I'm going to place the window here, and I'm also going to place another window over here. I'm not going to really worry too much about where this window is located, but somewhere in the information gives you an exact dimension. If I click on that, I've got my temporary dimensions on. You can exactly locate that. What I'm going to do is eventually in my design consideration is window should be centered in the wall, so it's going to have to be moved. Create a CAD box. So let's zoom out here a little bit. For an opening closed, if we come over to our construction legend, you can see that for an opening closed, it's just a series of lines. So I may grab this and copy it and paste it over there, and I'll also show you just how to draw that, but you can copy those things and paste it over there. Now that's going to want to be on my construction layer, so if I don't copy that, I'm going to want to change to my annotation set. So when I draw that, it's only on that layer. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create that CAD box, use a rectangular polyline tool, and we'll zoom in about where this opening is. I'm just going to create a vertical line. I'm not sure exactly, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so it'll be easier to see it. I don't know exactly where that window is going to be centered in the line yet, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to put a fill style in there for vertical lines. So underneath the fill style, let's come into the pattern, and what I'm looking for is a vertical hatch, and I may want to change the spacing on that and the line weight. Now once I center this window, I'm going to grab the window and I'm going to use the center tool and I'm going to center in the design. So now that's centered, and we know that that window previously was at this point in the upper section, and I'm just going to pull this down to where it snaps in to where the new window has been relocated, and then I'll pull that over and snap it against the wall. And you may need to tighten up the fill on that. Let me just click on that. Sometimes you have to press the tab key to get to it, and I may need to change that spacing to maybe 1 inch. So let's go ahead and grab a copy of this legend. Let's create a copy of it, and I'm going to slide it over here since we're in the construction layer set. And now any walls that may or may not be used, I can simply remove them. I know that I'm going to have a 6-inch wall. I know that I'm going to have a 4-inch wall. I know I'm going to have a demo wall. I don't have a stud wall, any new ones. I'm going to have the rest of these items. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to delete these items that I don't need. So I'll skip ahead after I delete those. Now I've deleted them. I'm just going to draw a marquee around these items. I'm going to slide them up, and then I'm going to grab these and I'm going to slide those up. So I've got the basis beginning for my construction legend. If you need to add new information, you can either type new text in here, or you can grab this text, copy it, pull it down, and then create another CAD box or whatever other symbol that you want to use and create. To update those dimensions, I can click in the room, click the automatic update, and you can see the positioning. We use the center tool to get this window centered into the room. You can verify that it is in fact centered. In the scenarios, you may get a situation where it says use a 40-inch window in a wall, and you have to do the math. We made it pretty simple. So if you click on this window, since the casing is set and there's no reveal, notice that there's no overlap. So it's pretty easy to do the math. It's just 4 inches plus the width of the window. In this case, it's a 40-inch window, and then the height, if you were to do the elevation, is also going to be 48 inches for the casing measurement. When you look at the dimensions, that's 44 inches for that casing. If this window in the scenario, it was 27 inches, so I'm just going to enter in 27 inches and relocate that. There's an exterior door on this wall, and let's go ahead and click that. Notice if I can click on either side, you can click and place the door, and then when you highlight the door, there's a change hinge side and swing side tool down in the bottom menu, so you can easily switch this around. This is supposed to be a 3.0 door, so let's open it up and verify what it is. You'll notice that the width is 34.5 inches or 34.25, but I'm going to set that to be 36. If the height of it were higher than a 6.8 door, then you can make the adjustments there. Now you can either update the dimensions, or if you zoom in, you should be able to get a finger on the dimensions. In that scenario, that was 3 inches away. And then finally, there is another door and a couple of walls that are protruding out that go to another room. And if you zoom in, they are very specific about those dimensions. So this is going to be an interior door and then a couple of walls that form a hallway out. Then you can see how that's dimensioned. So let's go ahead and take a look at the process for doing that. To create those hallway walls, again, I'm going to use the wall tool, and I'm just going to come out here and I'm just going to drag just a few inches out. Let's take that wall and create a copy of it. That way I have the same lengths of those walls. If I go and select my automatic dimensions, we may be finished with that. Let's click it and see what happens. So I clicked it. There's no update to the dimension on here, and now we're going to have to do a little bit of manual dimensions. So first of all, let's go ahead and pull this dimension away. Slide that over a little bit, and then I'm going to use my manual dimension tool, and I have a tool in here that we can use specifically for the wall. So if you select this, you can use the wall, and actually before we do that, let's just grab our dimension tool and see how it dimensions. So I'm just going to come in here and dimension it. You see that it picked up all those items on the wall legend. That's because it's designed to pick up CAD lines. It's easier, you could move the legend, or it's easier just to select this tool that I have set up and use it so it only picks up the particular wall areas. So we'll just slide this down through and pull it into place. Let's go ahead and pull it out here just a little bit, and then we'll zoom in. If you like having the wall thicknesses dimension, which is appropriate in some cases, but since these are stub walls on the outside, I'm going to highlight the dimension, double click on it, and there's a tool right here that says suppress wall widths. In this case, I don't care what those are, and I'm just going to simply remove it. Now I'm going to highlight the wall, and I know specifically what this dimension is. So I'm going to type in 2 feet, and then also this dimension in here is given in the scenario, and we'll set that out at 42 inches. If you don't want the dimension on the inside of this wall, since it's not part of the room, you can simply grab that and pull that dimension off. Now there is a door in between the hallway and what this is going to be, the kitchen. When I place that door, let's go ahead and grab our door tool and click and place our door, and then we'll get the swing side set up. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this to the outside, and then I actually need to change the hinge side here. We'll just click on that tool down here and change the hinge side. You can adjust this. A lot of times I like to pull that inside of my dimensions. Now this is an interior door, and in the architectural drafting standards the NKBA uses, you don't want this line in here. And since we are just drawing a single room, the program actually thinks that that is an exterior door, and there's a floor platform change, as you can see right here. There's no way to really get rid of that line in there since it's actually an exterior door. There is a way, if you zoom out here, quick way. I created a little whiteout so you could pull this over there. All that is a CAD box filled with white, and you could come in there and place over it. So there's one way to do it. You won't be able to actually get it over this line. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm just going to draw a room divider around here and then turn that off so that it converts it to an interior door. That's the best that I can do for that right now. So you may find a few of these issues to make sure you get your drafting standards. Again, if you just want to be aware of those things, then you'll be prepared when you see them in the exam. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to come out here and I'm going to draw a couple of walls around that. Notice when I do that, the line goes away. I'm all happy about it, and I'm just going to take these walls and I'm going to slide them pretty close in here, and then I'm going to highlight all of them, and I'm going to simply put those on a layer that can be turned off easily. So underneath the layer panel, instead of walls normal, I'm going to have a walls no locate temp. If you need to create a new layer for that, you can simply hit the define button, hit the copy button. So I put those on a layer called no locate temp, and then we'll just simply turn that layer off. There's a little shortcut down here that you can just remove that, and then they will disappear. Now the next thing is, notice that I need a break line that I have right here over the top of that. You can find a break line or create your own. The break line that I've provided for you is up here, so I'm just going to simply create a copy of that. It's kind of my workspace over here. I'm going to slide that over, and then we'll position it. So selecting that break, I'm going to actually hold my control key down. That way it gives me a little bit finer movement of it. And I'm just going to kind of position that into place. We'll zoom in a little bit, make sure that it's exact. So I'll just kind of click on it, slide it over again. I'm going to hold my control key down so I can get that exact. Once I have that positioned, I'm just going to select it. I'm just going to use my copy tool and pull it down and position it on the other wall. And finally, let's go ahead and adjust the dimensions. You see that you can either pull these back. A lot of times you're going to be faced with a challenge of getting this all on your construction drawing, so I usually try to make my dimensions as tight as I can within the guidelines. In this case, I may need to click on the extension itself. You don't want these touching the wall, so again, I'm going to hold the control key down. I'm going to pull it back. Notice my crosshair? I'm going to use that to line up those dimensions. So we'll just do a little bit of busy work here. I'm going to slide down, zoom out here a little bit so we can see where that dimension is. And let's go ahead and make sure that we have that. And I'm going to pull this one a little bit closer. And then finally on this dimension here, we don't really care what this outside wall is, so I'm just going to pull that dimension off. And then let's go ahead and pull this dimension in so that it's a little bit closer. So I've got that dimension. The next thing I need to do is make adjustments to this door. I think the use case said that it was a 32-inch door, so I'm going to go ahead and make that 32 inches. And then I need to also dimension to the casing perhaps. So I'm going to grab this diamond. I'm going to pull it to the inside of that casing, and we'll go ahead and pull the diamond to the inside of that casing. If I want to get that centered, I'll just simply come in here, click on the dimension, and in this case, let's set it to be 1.75. Again, we need to do a little bit of cleanup on the dimensions, so I'm going to select this, and let's go ahead and pull this dimension over here, and we'll select this dimension. Zoom in, there's a little square here, and you see my cursor change to a fourplex. Again, I'm going to hold the control key down. I'm going to use my crosshairs to line it up with the other dimension, and then release it. So you may want to spend a little bit of time making sure that's cleaned up. Those break lines are pretty big. You could resize those. And that's how I'm going to get the dimensions for that wall. I have the two stub walls that go out and form the hallway. Now next in the design for the construction plan of known facts, I've got a 6-inch wall in here. It goes to about 10 feet, and then there are some walls that were inside of the design. They're going to be demoed, and you can see that we've used the dashed line to represent that. Let's go through the process of doing that. The first thing that I'm probably going to do is select this wall, which is a 4-inch wall. I'm going to use the break tool up here and create a break in here. Once I've done that, let's go ahead and select that wall, double click on it, and I want to change the wall type to a interior 6 wall. Interior 6 wall. Now there's lots of different walls. I've kind of removed these walls out of the program so that you only have the basics. There may be a scenario where you need an 8-inch interior wall. You can simply grab this interior wall, create a copy of it, and then you can come in here and rename it interior 8, and then come down and change the dimensions of it. Typically that might be 7 1/4, and then you have a new wall type called interior 8. Okay, so in this case I'm going to make an interior 6 wall and make sure that dimension updated, so it's 151 on this side and 153 to the inside. It's important to make sure you keep an eye on those dimensions exactly. Now with this dimension here, I'm going to simply highlight it, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pull it back so that that becomes tied to that wall. And now I can come over here and click on this, type in 120, which way I want to move it, and then it should update. Now for those demo walls that are in the middle of the design, temporarily I'm actually going to use the wall tool, and I'm just going to draw out those dimensions of those walls. And temporarily what I might do here is let's use our interior dimension, or you can sometimes just click on it, make sure your temporary dimension is on. You can highlight it, and if you have a dimension up there and you know what it is, you can come in here and type it in. In this case up here, I want to make sure that this aligns up here to this wall. And once I've got this set, then what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to trace over these with a CAD box, and I'm going to delete these walls because I don't want to see these walls in the design. I don't want to make them maybe invisible in Chief Architect because that's going to give me a room definition, and it may make it more difficult to place objects over a wall or set ceiling heights if I need to in a particular way. So I'm actually going to just drag a CAD box right over the top of it. Again, if you want to grab this CAD box, pull it over, or you can use your own CAD box. Again, let's make sure that we are on our construction annotations, because then when I draw out a CAD box, let's go ahead and just drag this out real quick. And when I select that CAD box, it's going to be on the appropriate layer. If we take a look at the layer, it's on CAD construction, because again, you don't want those demo walls to show up in your electrical plan or in your floor plan. So that's what changing the annotation set automatically does it, so I don't have to draw it and then open it and change the layer set. So let me drag out a couple more of those. Again, if you want to open up the line style, change the line style to a dash line style, then you should be set. Go ahead and drag out those couple others. Now once I get those set up, I can just simply come in here with the wall tool, drag a marquee around those walls, and delete them. And that just leaves the CAD line box. And actually, it looks like when we did that, I need to adjust that wall because it moved it. So I'm just going to come in here and type in 120. Very important to figure out which way you want to move it. So I'm going to move it to the left end and make that exactly 120. Now in 3D, you can see that we remove those walls out. There's a jog in our wall. And the final item is the NKBA drafting standards. If you look at the design and presentation book, the second edition, the two windows that we have in here require centerline dimensions. This is a new window. This is a window that's been relocated. Back in the floor plan, I'm going to simply select this dimension. I'm going to pull it up since the centerline needs to go in the middle. Make sure that I'm on my construction annotations. I'm going to use the centerline tool, and I'm just going to pull it part way through because I only want to grab this window, and I'm going to do the same thing on this window over here. That picked up a few extra items, so let's actually drag that. It'll be easier to remove a few of those. Let's pull that up here from there. I'm going to select this dimension. I'm going to simply pull it up to where it should be located. I'm going to remove the dimension line off of the casing, highlight the extension. I'm going to pull it down into the window, and then finally highlight the dimension, grab the extra diamond, and pull it to the next wall location. Let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. Let's pull this dimension out, reposition this dimension over here. Again, pull the extra diamond off, and let's go ahead and highlight the extension, pull it into the object, and then one more time I'll just pull this extra diamond to the opposing wall, and then we'll just pull this dimension back in, and let's go ahead and make sure that we don't have any gaps in here since we've moved that. I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Notice that there are some gaps in here. I don't like to see that, and I'm going to make sure that it's the same distance as all of my extension reaches. Do the top, and I'm going to pull this one down just a little bit, and then again I'm going to highlight this, pull it down, slide over to the other side, and pull it down. Now a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try to be pretty thorough at looking at all of my gaps along here. I'll make sure that the 249 on the top matches the 249 on the bottom. In this case, the opposing dimensions should match 153 and 151, accounting for the extra 2 inches in the wall. Structurally, we have most everything we need for the construction plan, and I'm about ready to send this out to the layout sheet. Now, on the dimensions, if you take a look at the completed floor plan, they are slightly different because one, we don't have appliances in here, and on the floor plan I need a center line for my appliances. So the center line dimension over here is just going to change. So the dimensions need to be different. As much as I'd like to use those, they have to be different. What I'm going to do to make it easy on myself is I'm going to get the dimension tool. I'm just going to hold the shift key down and draw a marquee. So I'm holding the shift key down and I'm going to drag a marquee around all dimensions. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and use the open object tool, and I'm going to assign that to the specific layer because some of the dimensions would have been on the automatic dimension layer. Remember when I clicked the room and clicked the automatic dimensions? Others, the centerline dimensions for the window, are on the construction layer. I am going to come down to the layer, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to simply select the dimensions for the construction plan. Now all of those dimensions, including the automatic ones, if you click on it, is actually on a dimension layer of construction. So again, I just held the shift key down, highlighted all the dimensions, and put those on that layer. Now that I have everything that I need, I can now send this out to the layout. I've got my example layout open. I'm going to go to sheet number 1. It already has a construction legend on here, and I'm simply going to go back into the floor plan, say send to layout, and I'm going to make sure that the scale is at a 1/2 inch. I'm also going to make sure that making a copy of the layer set, sometimes maybe an older copy of our program is out, that has it checked. It's going to create another layout set, and it's just going to add clutter to your plan. So make sure that is not checked. It's at a 1/2 inch scale, and sometimes I will just say send the current screen. I've got a bunch of legends off to the side of my screen you can't see, and if I say entire plan, I'm just going to have to scope that in after I send it out there. It's going to go to page number 1. So let's go ahead and press OK. And now I just need to kind of size that. I'm going to pull in the viewport a little bit. This will help me. I find that it's very challenging to make sure that your design fits on an 11 by 17 sheet of paper by the time you get all of the information on there. Seems like they try to maximize that. So that's a challenge that you may face. So I've got my construction plan up here. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Back in the floor plan, everything is good to go. completed my construction drawing to the point that I can. I've created the legend, I've created my demo walls. Everything that is a known fact in the design has been taken care of. In the next video segment, we'll take a look at moving into some of the customer requirements in creating both the electrical cabinet and appliances.